Hello everybody, welcome to Outdoor Adventures. My name is Joanna. I am the Nature Education Specialist here at Forest Springs, and I'm excited to get out here and show you some of what we have around camp and what you can find at home. So today we're going to be going around taking a look at some of the cool wildflowers that you don't normally get to see at camp because they bloom before you get here. A lot of these plants are going to be edible, good to eat. Some of them you can eat, but they don't taste good. Anyway, let's go see what we have. Come on. So if you go on a walk, on different trails by your house, you might see some really bright bunches of yellow in the middle of a really swampy area. And at first you might think, oh, they're dandelions, because from far away, it's the same color as dandelions, but they're actually Marsh Marigolds. A few weeks ago, you could see these from the road, and they were so full of flowers, so bright. I thought it was maybe a dandelion. The flowering piece has fallen off, and it started to come into, its seeds are coming out. This is the common broadleaf plantain, no relation to the one that looks like a banana that you can find in the grocery store, and the young leaves are edible. So if I were to pick this, I could put it in with a salad, but the veins when they're older become very thick and coarse and not good and fun for chewing. So they're only good for like little salad greens when they are young. So look what we found over here. This is a really big one, so it's great you can see it really well. Trilliums have 3 huge leaves as well as just 3 huge petals. This is one of the flowers you probably didn't know grew all over camp. Camp is actually covered with them for 2 full weeks, but it's 2 weeks before any campers come, youth campers or anyone. But they start white. A lot of them, once they start wilting just a little bit, will turn pretty brilliant pink or purpley color. Most people will recognize these little purple flowers as violets. You might have some of these in your garden or your backyard, but they are the Wisconsin state flower. These little ones here, a lot of them are closed up today because it's a little bit overcast and cloudy, but they're called spring beauties, aptly named. They bloom in the spring and they are beautiful. These are actually one of the flowers that are also edible. So the young stems here and the flowers are edible. They also have tubers, which grow maybe about like 2 inches underground, which you can eat and prepare kind of like potatoes. Next door to our friend, the spring beauty, is this little guy, Jack in the pulpit. I didn't even notice he was here. When you're out on a walk looking for things, really like hype up those observation skills because there's a lot of little things to be found. He has stripes going up and down the flowering part. There's a little guy in there, that's Jack sitting in the pulpit. One wild edible you might have heard a lot of before are wild leeks. Some people call them wild onions, other people call them ramps. It's another thing about foraging for food. There are lots of different common names. So what one person calls a leek, someone else will call a ramp. If you look at the scientific name, that should agree. So you need to be careful that what you're identifying is actually the thing that you're trying to go out and find. So these wild ramps have very distinctive leaves. They're hard to misidentify because if you were to take a leaf and break it and smell it, it smells like onions. You could smell that, right? Anytime you're taking something from the wild, you want to do it sustainably. So in this little patch here, I am not going to take like half of it. I'm just going to take a little bit so that it will regrow and be happy. So this one you see, it has a flower stem starting to emerge here. That means that this bulb and even the stem is probably going to have a good section of it that is starting to get tougher and is not as good to eat. They're much tastier before they have these little flower bulbs. Here, we'll see. So then normally, if I was going to collect these for a wild edibles class, I would leave it like this until I can go and clean it in a stream or in a lake. But when you were going to clean it, there's a little casing kind of like an onion has, and you just slide it off and almost all the dirt will come off in that casing. And you break it off at the stub. Isn't that pretty? So here are a few things that you need to remember. One, when you're looking for certain plants, the common names are wildly inconsistent. So be careful of that. Make sure that you're using a scientific name or a combination of pictures, descriptions, not just one thing. Everything needs to match before you pick it and before you say, yes, I'm gonna put this in my body. Another thing is that plants might look drastically different at the different stages of their growth. Some plants are not good to eat once they've passed like their baby infantile stage, and other plants are only good to eat after they've matured and have started producing fruit or flowers. This one is probably the most important. Be aware of poisonous or toxic lookalikes. The ones that I am pointing out today will not have a poisonous lookalike, but you should always be aware of not only the plant you're looking for, but also what lookalikes might be for that species. Other important things for you to find out are whether or not it is legal for you to harvest in your area. And two, find out whether or not that area has ever been treated with pesticides. So don't collect along roadsides, don't collect in areas where it seems like there might be a lot of trash or pollution, because that can affect the soil, that can affect the plant. Some of that pollution you might get in those types of foods. Harvest sustainably. Make sure that you only take a small amount of whatever is growing so that that plant can grow back bigger, stronger, and even continue reproducing, making that patch bigger year after year. Scripture contains a lot of different natural metaphors, and Jesus uses a lot of natural examples to get his point across often. But in Luke, there's a specific scripture I want to read. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon, King Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass, which is alive in the field today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? So that verse kind of follows when God is saying, don't be anxious because he feeds the animals. Don't be anxious because he clothes even the flowers and the grass. We have a lot to be anxious about during this time, but going and taking a trip out into nature, a little walk, can remind us of God's provision. Even if it's just general, how he cares for those plants, everything in nature can be applied back to us. So if you're interested in doing this at home with your family, going on a walk and identifying some plants, there are going to be some links below in the description. Feel free to check those out. They'll help you in your identifications. And thank you for coming on these adventures with me. We'll see you next time.